Hello, my creative friends. Thanks for joining me today. Well, I've got a page full of leftover paints and stamps that I've tried, and it's basically so full now that I've got a background to work with, so that's perfect. I'm going to add a little bit to it with a napkin. I really love the design on this napkin, sort of a slightly Moroccan tile kind of feel. And I'm just peeling off the backing because I don't need that part. I just want the very fine sort of tissue side. And this was a 2-ply napkin, so I'm removing both layers so you can see how transparent the actual top layer is going to be now. I can see my page showing through behind it. And I'm just taking my time so I don't tear anything away. And I've got the fan on because it's really hot today, so my napkin is flying around a little bit. And I'm just simply going to tear it up by hand, and I don't want any straight edges, so I'm removing the straight lines from the edges, so I don't get any sort of sharp lines. Even though the paper is so thin, it's just a precaution really, because it probably wouldn't show up. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to tear them up into pieces that look quite uneven with sort of ragged edges. And then I'm going to use some gel medium to apply the paper underneath, so to glue the paper, and a little layer on top of it just to seal it. Now let's get going. Okay, now my background is looking really gorgeous. I love it. I love that texture look that I've got from the napkin. So I'm going to add a few colors to make things pop, starting with a bit of light green, and then a little bit of that bluey, purpley color that I love so much, a mauve, I guess we can call it. And everything's coming together now. So I'm going to add some contrast with some hot pink all around the edges. And that's really making things pop now and creating a sort of a hazy border, if you like. So I really like how it's looking now. I'm going to give you a bit of a close-up so you can see. So you can see all the texture and all the colors and how gorgeous it's looking. Okay, time to add a bit of texture, and I'm using a Caramel Studio texture plate, which is like a large stamp on a rubber sheet. What I love is the fact that it's so flexible. Look at this compared to a regular stamp, which means you can use it in your jelly prints and on any journal page or mixed media, especially there's a bit of texture or it's a bit hard to reach. For instance, near the spine of my journal, it's hard to stamp. But with something like this, I can really get into the little nooks and crannies. So I'm using some dark purple ink to add a bit of texture here and there. And by the way, you can buy Caramel Studios texture plates in my store if you want. The link is mixedmediastore.com.au. So just have a look and see if there's something you like. They have beautiful designs. This one in particular has lots of different designs on one sheet, so that's pretty cool. And I love how I've got like little, bits of interest here and there. So I'm adding a bit more paint now just to help bring things together, all these elements of collage and texture, and basically it's just adding a little bit of color at the same time. Now I'm going to use another stamp and a proper stamp this time, again from the same company, but I love the little fine writing on the right stamp and also those beautiful circles I've used in previous tutorials. You can have a look and see what I've done with them. And I love how it's just adding some very subtle sort of handwritten text that's actually not legible at all. It's just give you that idea that something is written on there. So that's pretty cool. And again, it's a stamp that I'm going to use a lot on my mixed media. I'm going to show you up close so you can see what I'm talking about. So just a little bit of writing that's very subtle, and again, it adds a lovely texture. Now I'm going to follow up with my little bloom stencil again that you can find in my store. I love how you've got like little flowers on there that are quite detailed, and that's going to add a beautiful little focus point on my background here. So I'm going to get some gesso because I like how white and opaque it is. I really want to make sure my flowers are going to pop above my busy background. And it doesn't really matter if they're not perfectly detailed, if they're a little bit smudged, who cares, it's just mixed media, it's your journal, you can do whatever you like. It doesn't have to be perfect. And because this stencil is quite thin, I can really apply it into the little nooks and crannies of my journal again, like I have with the texture plate earlier. And I'm just going to add 3. So you can see they're not exactly perfect. They've got a bit of a smudge there because I put too much gesso and it seeped through the stencil, but who cares? It's all good. I'm now using a Jelly Roll pen and adding some very subtle stems and leaves, basically nothing fancy, just hand-drawn elements that are not very visible because I don't want them to be the focal point. I just want the heads of the flowers to stand out. As you can see, nothing too exciting, but just adding a little bit of definition to the flowers, I guess. And then finally, I'm going to use a black marker pen and just handwrite a quote. It's a quote by Henry Matisse that says, "There are always flowers for those who want to see them." Something that is good to remember and is very true. So I'm just going to handwrite it first with one layer, and then I'm going over again, adding some little curls here and there and thickening up some of the letters so they stand out a little bit more because my background is quite busy. Again, I don't want the quote to be, too strong. I want it to be quite fine because my flowers are quite delicate, so I don't want a big chunky kind of font. So that's why I'm doing it this way, just quite thin and by hand instead of using stamps. So it's a little bit more, I don't know, what would you say? It's a little bit more natural, a bit more organic, I guess. And time to finally add the final touches, I guess. And I'm going to put some gold paint on quite thick to make sure that I can really see it against my beautiful colors, and it will add some shine in the center of my flowers too and act as a border around the page to frame it. And I'm going to show you up close. I'm really, really excited how this all turned out. I really love it, and I hope that it's inspired you to create something similar and to use leftover paint in your journal as a background. Thanks for watching!